right, so you're welcome to this episode of Success System. I have with me in this episode Dr. Bio Belemwe Irabor. I want her to introduce herself and just give us a bit of background into who Dr. Bio is.
Okay, thank you so much for the opportunity to be here, sir. I'm very grateful. So my name is Bio. The full name is Bio Belemwe. I grew up in Nigeria and then I moved at the age of, I think, 16. So that was in 2013. So I moved to Winnipeg at the time because my mom knew the pastor of a church who was there. So it was easier for me to move there because then I would have like family there. So when I moved, I always wanted to do medicine though. That was always my goal because I love the health sciences. And you know how like when you grow up in Nigeria, it's either medicine if you're into health. But for me, I really enjoyed it. My uncle and auntie were doctors in Nigeria. My dad was a pharmacist at the teaching hospital in Ibadan. So I had that like health background. Anyway, I decided to start instead with nursing because nursing offered me the opportunity to have like a stable income and to also have a leg into the healthcare system. Because in Canada, you can't just do medicine as a first degree. You have to do a degree before you go into medicine. So I decided to do nursing first. So I finished nursing in 2018. I worked for 2 years, but while I was working, I had to study for the exam called the MCAT needed to take um, to be able to apply into medicine. So I studied for that, and then I bridge version, but I ended up getting to the University of Calgary. I finished this year and I've already started my residency. So I guess that's a little bit of a background.
Well, thank you. I'm very sure that uh, it must have been a very a long journey for you. So, how do you feel to finally have that appellation MD at the end of your name? Or how do you feel to finally become a medical doctor?
Honestly, I'm still getting used to it because, like, now when I'm like seeing patients and all, and my preceptors are introducing me and they're like, "This is Dr. Irabor," like, I always want to, like, just like hide or something. So I feel like it's something I'm still getting used to, but I'm thankful that I was able to, like, go through all of that journey and, like, be able to be here. So I enjoy what I do. I'm grateful for it, but I'm still getting used to the title, I think.
Wow, that is good. I still remember when you first came to Winnipeg. I mean, of course, very young and I saw the smart, intelligent, somebody who knows what she wanted to do. That has been very clear, and over the years I've seen that grown into even a better version of yourself. So I'm very happy for you, and I think that is one of those reasons why I said, okay, I'm going to bring you on this channel to share with us your journey. So now that you are studying medicine, let's step back a little bit. While you were studying nursing, were were there times when you felt like, well, I should be a medical doctor now? I mean, for example, in fact, maybe when you're having your is it practicum in the hospital and you're seeing some of these medical doctors walking around, how do you feel that time to see them, knowing that I can also do this thing? Why am I still doing nothing? So how do you feel, and how did you undo it that time?
That's such a great question. I think like once I was in nursing and I knew that my long-term goal was medicine, one of the things I always used to do was like I would watch all this like YouTube vlogs of day in the life of a medical student or day in the life of a medical doctor. So while I was in the unit and I would see the residents, I would see some of the doctors, like I would just like it kind of gave me hope and a drive. Like I wasn't filled with envy or like, oh my gosh, why am I the one that they're giving orders? No, I enjoyed the season that I was in, but in that moment I was like looking up to some of these people, some who like looked like me who were black, some who were Caucasian. Like it just inspired me, like, Bio, like you can do this, keep going. At some point during my journey, like I was like, should I just do a master's in nurse practitioner? Like I considered not going into medical school, but I knew that there was a conviction and a leading from God for me to do it. So in times where I was just like, maybe I should just settle because I was earning good money, like, and I enjoyed my role as a nurse. I didn't hate being a nurse, but I knew that that was not the end of the journey for me. So while I was seeing all of these other people chasing their dreams and all that, it just inspired me. Like, it made me feel like, yo, you can do this. And times when I wanted to just slack in and just be like, maybe I should settle, I remembered that it was God that led me there in the first place.
I mean, you said something that you had this conviction, you remember, so you are not filled with any form of envy or disappointment towards these people who are already medical doctors. That is very good to know, because sometimes our journeys are not going to be straightforward. Yeah, I mean, there will be some challenges. There will be some way. Not in your own case, not challenges, right? It's just like you just needed to have a break, kind of, before you continue the journey. So now, can you just walk me through your journey from when you started nursing and then you finished nursing to writing some of those exams? I saw some videos after you got into the medical school in Calgary. Can you walk me through that journey, and how were you able to handle them, knowing that this period was when you were also practicing as a nurse and you were going through this process of getting to medical school? How did that go, and how were you able to handle it?
Yeah, that's such a great question. And honestly, it wasn't easy. And it came with its challenges. I feel like anything that's worth doing requires work. Like, it doesn't come on a platter of like, okay, well, I want to do this, all of a sudden, bam, it's done. So I did nursing from 2013 to 2018. The school I went to, your first year was kind of like University 1. So you had to take courses to be able to enter into the program. And at that time, nursing was 4 years. So this was something you had to do full time. You will not have time to study for any exam, because back to back to back, there were things to be done. Over the summers, I would do like research work. And I was involved in research because I knew it would give me an edge for my long-term goal. So I kind of structured my journey, even in nursing, to be able to make me competitive enough for medicine. So I did that for till 2018. Now, mind you, once I graduated, I started working right away on the unit where I did my last practicum. So I was full time. So that's like 12-hour shifts for about like 40 to 50 hours per week. And sometimes weekends are in there. And sometimes you would even do overtime. Now, I knew I wanted to go into medicine. So I said I wanted to have a research job. So what I did is I dropped my full-time is 1.0 to a 0.75, which is almost like still full-time. It's just that maybe you get like 4 days off at a stretch. And then I now got a second job, a research job during the day. So what I would do is some days I would work from 8 a.m. till 4 p.m. at my research job. It was at the Children's Hospital then. Then I would have a 2-hour break, take maybe a quick nap. Now go for my night shift. Then I was working post-op cardiac surgery till 7 a.m. the next morning. So during my night shift, I would study. So like sometimes it's not as busy or it's not as intense. Sometimes it can be very intense. But you at least you have a guaranteed 2-hour break. So those 2 hours, I'll go to one corner, nobody will see me. I will start studying, doing practice exam tests. So there were days like I would go three days without sleeping for like 6 hours, at most maybe like 3 to 4 hours. And on top of that, I was still volunteering at church in the choir. So what I did was, instead of doing it every week, which I used to do, maybe I'll do 2 weeks in the month so that I could still like volunteer. But it was almost like my goal, and the fact that I knew that God was leading me to do this just gave me an unusual energy and drive, where like I was just like, this will not last forever. I knew I was going to do the exam and then I could rest. So that just kept me going. Like I will have like bags under my eyes and stuff during that season. So I did the exam the first time. I didn't my score was not good enough. But instead of me saying, oh well, that means I did exactly. So I didn't bother applying that year. Then the second year, because remember I worked for 2 years before I went to med school. The second year I did the exam again. This time my score was good enough. Applied broadly across Canada. Rejection after rejection after rejection. But I remember the word that God had given me. So that gave me strength. And so the only school that had actually accepted me was Calgary. So then I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm moving out of Manitoba to Calgary. Moved to Calgary in July 2021. And Calgary's program is a bit different because it's a 3-year instead of a 4-year degree, which I liked. Because then you finish faster, but then you don't have any summers. You're just going.
Back to back.
Exactly. And so then I ended up graduating in 2024 and then matched into my current residency program. So like it came with its challenges. It was very difficult. It required discipline, intention, and a drive that like a passion and drive whereby for other people who would look at me in that season where maybe I didn't have time to go out or hang out or just have all this extra time. Like I knew what my goal was for this year, and I knew it was not going to be a forever thing. So I did what was required to get me to that place.
Now, thank you for saying that. I picked a few things, but I want you to elaborate on certain things. Now, for example, now if I want to follow your path, for example, well, not me in this case. Now, I'm on my own journey. So if there's somebody that wants to follow your path now, you said something about research experience that you thought was going to be very useful for you to apply to the medical school. You talked about having good grades, good results in your MCAT exam. Yeah. What other things do one require? What are the things that, what are some of those things that one should be looking out for? And then, for example, also, because you studied nursing, does your grades that you graduated with from in nursing has any role to play in your admission into the medical school?
Oh,
that is going to be my. Then I'm going to follow up with another question. So walk me through those things that those pieces of the puzzle that eventually got into University of Calgary.
Great question. So first thing I'll say is my experience in nursing helped me get like an inside view of the culture of medicine. Okay. So, because there's things that you read online, right? But you may not actually have a deep understanding of what it means or what they're looking for. So from my experience going through nursing school and working as a nurse, I realized that there's a particular culture in healthcare and medicine where there's specific traits that they're looking for. And so while I was in my application journey, I decided to highlight those areas in my life. So I look at it as a three-fold picture. One is your grades, so my GPA. I had to make sure that I was not having anything less than A's or A pluses or at most B's. That's number one. So they want to see that you are intellectually smart. You can learn. Number two, research experience. That's you're inquisitive. You have a quest for evidence-based applications because that's what we do in healthcare. The medications we give, all of those things are research-based, right? The third thing is volunteerism, empathy. Do you care about people? And so my experience in the choir, I volunteered at a lot of places. I volunteered in the hospital from my first year. I did a lot of advocacy research with international students where we even published a paper. So they want to see that, okay, as much as you're smart, do you care about people? Are you empathetic? So those are like how I see it, like volunteerism, your grades, which is your exams and all of those things, and then research. That makes you a strong candidate when you apply.
That's very good. Now, I've read in places where I learned that it doesn't matter what your major is during your undergrad. You can study French, and then you can still get into medical school. Is that very good? Is that correct? Let me start from.
Yes, it's very accurate. Like speaking from the lens of Canada, I had classmates who did music as their first degree, right? As long as you maintain your GPA, it does not matter what you study, right? You can't do just a diploma though. You need like a bachelor.
A degree, okay.
Exactly, a degree. So yes, grades, irrespective of, I have engineers, people that were engineers that worked for 20 years. So we're just
there's hope for me.
There's hope. If you want to come, we're welcoming you to the other side.
And on a lighter note, you know, my dad actually wanted me to study medicine when I was in Nigeria. I was what I said, no, it is engineering, not medicine. Probably
There's still hope. There's still hope.
That is good. So now, when it now comes to the MCAT exam, is there like a cap of your score that you need to have before you can at least apply to schools? Number two will be that, is there, with the schools, we know we don't have too many schools in Canada, unfortunately. And I'm going to ask a question about that. So the cutoff marks for each of these schools, do they vary or are they almost the same for your MCAT? If knowing that if your grades are good for your bachelor's, MCAT might be one area where everybody is on the same playing, a fair playing ground. So what should one be targeting in MCAT to be competitive enough for at least the lowest of the schools, not in terms of the category, but in terms of the cutoff points?
Requirements. Yeah, that's a very, very good question. So number one, yes, different schools have different requirements. And then different schools require different scores in the MCAT.
Okay.
But the key here, which I realize, is that there's some schools that will look at your overall score. So the MCAT involves chemistry, physics, critical thinking. You just read a passage and answer questions based on that passage, verbal reasoning, and then chemistry, like biochem, organic chem. So it's like an 8-hour exam, right? And it's on a scale. So it's about 523 is the total score you need to, like the highest score you can get, if I remember correctly. So for some schools, like Calgary, they don't look at your biology score because it's in different, like you get the scoring of each subject, then a total score.
Okay.
Some schools will only look at your total score and have a minimum you must reach before they look at your file.
Okay.
So it's in phases. Maybe they get 1,000 applicants. They'll only look at GPA and MCAT score. Then let's say 1,000, then only 500 meets that scoring criteria. Then they look into your file. That's like your volunteering, your essays, and all of that. Which means if you don't even meet that minimum, don't bother applying, right? So you're not going to get into file review stage. For Calgary, the only thing that they required or they looked at was your CAR score. That's the critical thinking.
Wow.
Because Calgary is a 3-year program, they favor mature students. So mature students meaning like you're not just coming right out of undergrad. Yeah, like 16 or 17. No, they like people with experience, life experience, because they find that because it's a 3-year, you need resilience. You need to be mature. You need to know how you learn. And so their target audience in that case is mature like students who have experience, which is why they don't really care, oh, biochem. Just prove to us that you can learn. Because if you can learn anything. And it requires critical thinking. So different schools have different scoring requirements.
Oh, okay. Now, do you think, okay, now generally, how many medical schools do we have in Canada, if you know them?
Like 20 something. So we
20
have
medical schools in
the whole of Canada. Yeah.
Now, in the whole of Canada.
Yeah.
And in Canada, I know we are about 40 million people, kind of. So we have 40 million people and we have 20 medical schools. Yeah. Do you think that's a problem?
Of course. But then we also have to consider, like, do they even have funding? Because there's a requirement that's needed, right? To be able to set up these schools, to be able to, because the government actually subsidizes it for students that come in. But we also know that there's a need for doctors, right? So it's this conundrum where, okay, there's a high demand. A lot of people don't even have family doctors across Canada. But then we don't have infrastructure in place to be able to train. Not only that, even the schools that are here, there's a minimum that they can get. Per year, it's, at least I know from my school, it's about like 130 to 140 per year that they have seats. Yeah, that they have seats for. So imagine, like, in a world, like you're saying, 40 million people, not enough doctors, but then not enough training infrastructure. So it's like this, like, conundrum. Yeah. So
in that case, for somebody who is coming right from Nigeria or from any country outside of Canada, and the goal is just like yours, I want to study medicine. How would you advise such person to structure their lives as they are coming into the country, taking their first undergrad program? How should they structure their lives? How should they structure their academics in such a way that they will have an edge or advantage when they start applying to medical school?
Great question. Because there's some people who were doctors in Nigeria or abroad, let's say, before coming. That's a whole different stream. If you've done that already, you can't come and start all over from undergrad and then do it my way. That's a different stream. So I'll speak to those people first. For those people, I think, find jobs in healthcare. Not only are you coming from a different culture, like outside of the Canadian culture, there's the healthcare culture in Canada.
So it's a subsection of the Canadian
Yes, and the only way that you can be able to assimilate and get people to vouch for you is when you're in the system. Now, a lot of people that I've seen that have been successful in transitioning, they started off as like physician assistants. So they would be working as physician assistants, saving up money to do those exams, which are very expensive. And it's a long process. It can be up to like a 2-year process, right? But because they were already working in that stream, they were already taking orders from those doctors. Those doctors already knew them. It was easy for them to just get right into residency, because instead of starting from medical school in that case, you just apply into the residency system and then you finish residency before becoming an attending. But being in the system, like, I cannot overemphasize it. You can have all the 40 years of experience, but if nobody knows you, if nobody in their culture can vouch for you, it's
Now,
going to be very hard.
for someone, for example, for somebody who is an engineer like myself,
Yeah.
and I decide one day that, okay, I think I'm done with engineering, I want to go into medicine. Do I still have to go through that path of volunteering in the ed sector or working in the ed sector? How do I go? I studied music, I studied engineering. How do I go?
So then for someone like you can even do like volunteering once a month at healthcare system. That shows that you started to, you have interest. But your edge, you see, like, different profiles have different strengths. Your own edge is that you've had a whole career in engineering. You bring a different perspective. Like, for example, if you decide to specialize in biomedical engineering, not many people can do that, right? Because not many people have that engineering background. So when you're going through your own application, you're going to hone in on your own strength, saying you bring a different perspective, a different understanding of a different culture that you feel like you can now apply in this new system. So you don't need to do all the research, volunteering, all of those things. You do need to show some certain level of interest, right? Because the question would be, why did you pivot? So you need to show that, okay, maybe you volunteered once a month with this system. That's what like brought you into healthcare. And then from there, you will hone in on your strength, being like you come from a whole different culture and you can contribute to the healthcare system, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I will ask you this question. Did you apply to the medical school in University of Manitoba?
Yes, I did.
Yes, now the reason is this. I know you lived in Winnipeg, so one would have expected that by default, University of Manitoba Medical School should be the direct school that you apply to.
Yeah.
Okay. So you didn't get into that place, right?
Yes, and I feel like when I was applying in that year, Manitoba was very much emphasizing only grades. Like, they didn't care about your experience. Or there was no, like, when you're applying, you're just putting in your MCAT score and your GPA. There was no like or what experience. So like, for example, my nursing experience, my research, all of those things, back then when they were doing their application process, there was no room for that, which is why I believe that Calgary was a better fit for me, because they wanted more people who had other life experiences, and that were like good learners and could contribute to the healthcare system, if that makes sense, especially knowing it was a 3-year program, but Manitoba is a 4-year program.
But that makes sense. Then invariably what you are trying to tell us now is that if one decides to start the application, you don't just jump into applying to the medical school in your province. You must do your research to understand which of them will actually give me edge or increase my chances of getting into the, okay.
Like, I literally had a spreadsheet of all of the schools, all of their requirements, all of like what they emphasized and what they didn't. Then I ranked it for my own self, like where I wanted to go the most. In fact, it was McMaster that was my first choice because it was 3 years. It was in Ontario. But it was very competitive because they will always consider their in-province people first before out of province. So even the way that I entered into Calgary was honestly God, because their requirements are even higher if you're out of province. Like, so your CARD score, for example, for back then, you need, if you are in province, just 123, they'll look at your file. But if you're out of province, 128. And the highest is 131 or so.
Wow.
So you needed to
They have to be up there.
Yeah.
Wow, that is interesting. That is interesting. Wow. I mean, now that you are so tell me now. I know we didn't really chat while you were in medical school. So how was medical school for you?
Oh, honestly, it was fun. Medical school was fun. Like, I had a good support system because anywhere I go, I always find a church. So I had a very great support system church-wise, as well as in school. I enjoyed learning. Like I realized I really love like medicine and all of those, like the healthcare system. Like I enjoyed school. I had like this friend, like we did school together. So like I wasn't alone. Like it was just fun. Like, and then seeing, I guess the difference in the role now, like as a nurse, and then coming in first of all as a medical student and now a resident, and then how I relate with the nurses. Like for example, even when I put in orders for the nurses to execute, I think about it from like, okay, my own perspective, like what would be easier for the nurse. So I feel like I thoroughly enjoyed medical school. Like it was hard because like you needed to study, like there was a lot of information you needed to learn in a short amount of time, but I enjoyed the process. It's not like it's easy or it's like, I mean, I was able during my time off, like maybe if I had a week off, I was able to travel, spend time with friends and family. But when school was on, school was on.
Yeah, for sure. I follow your Instagram
That's
page, and I know and I know how much gallivanting you did while in medical school. Well, that's very good. Now the question I was going to ask is, back in Nigeria, I have medical students that are my friends. We studied together. The way these guys study, I don't know, maybe it's the same way you guys study here in medical school. You see them with their big textbooks, see them in a way, I mean, I think the way they studied them was to study for almost 9 months of this. We that are in the other faculties, we study for 4 months and we go write our exams and then how, but I think they usually study for about 8 or 9 months, I guess, thereabout. And they go for their almighty exams. And things happen during the exam. I mean, some people will pass, some people will. So is it the same in Canada medical school, or there's a difference in the way and manner with which you guys study medical school?
Yeah, I think that like one of the things you're saying is like how in Nigeria there's a lot of information you have to learn.
Yeah, a lot.
But then the method of which you're learning it is almost like you just need to cram.
Okay.
I think that's the impression I get.
Okay.
But here, how would I would say is different is that the level of information is the same. Like there's a lot of information. But I think that there's more resources here because they try to ingrain some of the things that we're learning in real life cases. So as we're doing our studying and all of that, we get opportunities to go into the hospital and see patients with these type of illnesses and diseases. Outside of that, there's this thing we call simulation. So we get people in the community who volunteer to serve as like fake patients. So this is now in a safe environment where maybe the patient is presenting with certain symptoms, then you now have to diagnose and treat them. So it gives you an opportunity where I've studied all of this wealth of information in my house. Now I'm in this safe environment to try and practice and see if I actually have learned what I'm supposed to learn and I'll not kill the patient. Then I'm now in the hospital with guidance from my residents as well as my staff to put me to the test and see, okay, do you understand what this patient is coming in with and why? So then you actually know what you know. Like, because if you think about it, we need to know a lot of things because the body system is a lot.
It's a lot.
And the life of somebody is in your hands. If you make a wrong diagnosis, you can actually kill a person. So like we have to go through, I say that like military training. There's a rigorous level of training because the duty that we have to care for people is high. Like the life of somebody is literally in your hands. So you have a duty to know, make sure that you know what you know. And if you don't know, ask somebody else. Don't just do guy and diagnose somebody with something that they don't have and treat them with something that they don't have, right? So that's how I see it. And that's why I think it's a lot.
Okay, thank you for answering that. Now I'm going to take you back to when you were in University of Manitoba, studying nursing, and then fast forward to when you were in medical school in Calgary. Do you have to make any adjustment in the systems that allowed you to excel in University of Manitoba compared to the one that you adopted when you were in medical school in Calgary? what did you do while you were in University of Manitoba, and how did that work for you? What adjustment did you have to make when you went to medical school in University of Calgary?
That's such a great question. I feel like, yes, I had to make adjustments, but I also don't want to not acknowledge the fact that doing nursing first actually gave me an edge to be able to learn faster in medicine. So I'll explain. In nursing, we don't really go into the in-depth of like the pathophysiology of the patient. So like certain illness and why it happens and the nitty-gritty details, right? Like the little molecules, everything. We don't go into in depth too much. We just know enough to be able to then make sure that we're caring for the patients, doing the orders that the doctor has said, and like recognizing red flags that we need to escalate to the doctors. Now, the way that I was learning in nursing was very like, I think it was more, I wouldn't say superficial. I would say like I was able to get things faster. But in medicine, I realized I needed to settle down and understand the why in depth. Not only because I needed to care for the patients appropriately, but to be able to then think of ways we can do things differently. That's where innovation comes into play. So I feel like I had to quickly learn that strategy shift early on, because remember, Calgary is very short. It's a short amount of time. We have a lot of exams back to back, and we have smaller exams that determine whether or not you get into the next level. So you cannot afford to be failing maybe the first 5 exams. No. You need to know your strategy from day one. So I realized quickly that I needed to shift my brain when I would study and be thinking of what I'm studying as a nurse, and now start studying as the person who will be making the decisions rather than executing the decisions.
Oh, so that means that, of course, what you're trying to say now is that as a nurse, you are taking orders from the medical doctor. Now that you are now going to becoming a medical doctor, you have to learn to know what order you're going to be giving out has been correct. Oh, wow, that is
exactly.
So now, do you think having a mentor while you are in nursing school and when you are in medical school, do you think that has a role to play in your success?
100%. 100%. I feel like, especially in medicine, like once I got in and I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do, I found a mentor in my first year who like helped me, guided me through every step. And she actually used to practice in Manitoba. I'm sure you know her, Dr. Dowdu. So she helps me every step.
Dowdu. I want to look at our first name.
Tito. Dr.
Tito, okay, yeah.
She helped me every
Tito,
step. Yeah, she helped me every step of the way. Like she would review like my
I guess she's in Calgary, right?
Yes, she is.
Okay, I'm just trying to wrap my brain. Yeah,
she's a general surgeon here now. So like that helped me through my journey in medicine. Like by the time I knew I wanted to get in, I was in nursing already. I'd reached out to her. So I'd reach out to her while I was in nursing already. And so because I knew what my long-term plan was, I had mentors in nursing as well for research. Like I worked in the research center in my like nursing school. So I had a lot of professors through there that knew me, and I would like talk to them, like few of them, about like my plans to go into medicine. I didn't really share initially in the beginning because I
got to be careful.
So it was towards the end, right? Once I knew I was about to graduate and start school, then I started opening up. Okay, I will probably need a letter and all of that. So from one of my professors. So I feel like mentors cannot be underrated, like or overrated, I think, because they've already walked that path. So they can give you tips on like avoid this trap or do it this way, which makes it faster for you and easier for you so that you're not repeating the same mistakes. So like in whatever you want to do, doesn't have to be medicine, can be anything, art, engineering, find someone who you look up to that's already gone through that path. And people are honestly nice. Send an email. Hello, this is my goal. Are you willing to meet with me for 10, 15 minutes? I did that a lot during nursing as well as medicine. I talk to a lot of people, and people are so open and honest, and they will tell you the truth. Yeah.
Wow, that is good. I know that too. I mean, because there's this saying that if I can see farther than others, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants. So you need to identify those giants in your career and that you can stand on their shoulders. Thank you. I mean, that is very good.
I honestly, sorry, one thing I wanted to say before you go is like you're not too old to start. Like one thing that people think is like, okay, well, my prime has gone. Your prime has not gone. You can be 40 and decide to go into medicine. I just wanted to say that. And I have an auntie who decided, she was an engineer actually for like 10 years. I have her on my missions and medicine page, Instagram. And she decided to go back to medicine and now she's a doctor. So like it's not never too late for you. If you think it's too late for you, just think those number of years will still pass. Why don't I just as well use that time to do what it is that is in my heart to do?
Well, I hope you're not tempting me to
I'm tempted.
Thank you for that. Thank you for. So now that you are, can you tell me what concentration of medicine you are currently doing your residency on?
So honestly, I was super because I only worked in surgery as a nurse. So I wanted to do surgery. That was my goal. I didn't care what anybody said. My number one, I wanted to do cardiac surgery.
Wow.
And if you know what cardiac surgery is like, you don't have a life outside of surgery. But that was my passion. That's what I wanted to do. And I was like, I'm not backing up with anything. That's what I want to do. Anyway, I ended up matching now to pathology. And pathology is kind of like lab medicine where we're like doing histology, like diagnosis, and we still do a bit of like medicine as well. You can make your practice what you want it to be. And so far, I've honestly been enjoying it. I'm in my first year. We'll see what the future holds. There's still opportunity for me to switch if I wanted to. I'm still thinking about it. I haven't made a like final decision about it, but like I like the balance that it affords me. I'm able to like volunteer at my church still in the choir. I'm able to travel. I'm not stressed. So we'll see how it goes. And I do enjoy, I thought I would not enjoy the discipline, but I do enjoy it. Yeah.
I'm going to ask you 2 questions back to back, and then I'm going to ask you maybe 1 or 2 more questions. So I have about 3 or 4 questions for you. So number 1 is this. How has traveling around the world that you have done? So I know you have done so many travels within Canada and then outside of Canada. How has that helped you in your journey so far? I know you came in as a 16, 17-year-old lady many years ago, and here you are as a grown medical doctor. I mean, I can cause trouble and say, yeah, I'm a medical doctor. So how has traveling around the world, I know recently you were in Paris, you travel all around, how has that helped you to become the medical doctor that you are?
Yeah, I think that traveling gives you like different perspectives on how people see things. And it makes you more open to understanding people's context. And then you can then provide better care for them. For example, this year, I think it was, I did a solo trip across Europe to like maybe 10, I can't even remember the number, probably up to 10 different countries. And like I just came back feeling more confident. Like I just felt like there's nothing in this world I cannot achieve like if I put my mind to it. And I feel like we need to encourage young people, both male, female, especially before you settle down and marry, because you can't be carrying one child on the back, one child in front, and say you're backpacking across Europe.
Go to 10 countries.
So as much experience as you can get before you get married. Like, don't feel like, oh my gosh, like, I need to just, yes, you need to hustle, you need to save up money and all of that. But as much as possible, expose yourself to different things, like within the confines, I mean, of like logic, right? That's not unsafe or bad or anything like that, because it gives you an expanded mind. Like it helps you to grow. It helps you to understand who you are. It helps you to grow in confidence, even in like talking, like all of those things. Like there's so many benefits that people don't really like realize until like you're exposed to different things. So I encourage young people, like, go out of your comfort zone, learn more about yourself, and it also gives you an edge. Like these are some of the things that we talk about like in medical spaces as well, right? Or even in medical interviews, because then that shows a level of maturity as well. So I think ultimately, like, it has given me a broader view, a broader perspective, and even a better understanding of myself and a self-confidence that I don't know how I would have gotten otherwise.
Wow, that is good. Now, this question is going to be a bit, it's going to be funny, but I know you are a very smart lady. I know you are smart. You have smashed a lot of exams. Have you ever failed before?
Of course. Yes.
So the answer is, how then did you handle failure? Because people will see Bio, Bio is always smashing. She said she's an A student, yes, but if Bio has failed before, how has Bio able to undo failure?
Yes, awesome. Like one of the things that has helped me in times I failed, I remember there was this exam that I took. This was even during my clerkship, so like my last year, because I had not yet failed in medicine until like my last year in medicine. I remember that exam, I took it and I saw an email, because once you fail, you get an email, you have to do a whole rewrite and all of that. I was like, what? I was upset. So the way that I view failure, I view failure in a manner of where I sit down and I'm like, okay, what did I do wrong? Like, how do I explain this? Failure doesn't define who I am. That's how so I'm not a failure. I failed an exam is different from I'm a failure.
Okay.
So I don't hone on that identity because I failed. Instead, I sit down and I'm like, okay, what strategy do I want to do to attack this so that this doesn't happen again? So I think maybe it's just like the way that I also grew up. Like there's this level of self-confidence that I grew up in an environment whereby, to the point where it gives me this overconfidence, even where I just feel like there's nothing, if I put my mind to it, I can do it, I can achieve it. I feel like I have limitless ability. So when I'm faced in a situation where my limitless ability did not show up in this case, it doesn't make me, it doesn't make me now feel like, hey, now I'm a failure. No, I've grown to a point where I know that I can, whatever I put my mind to, I can achieve with the help of God. So now it's just time for me to re-strategize. This strategy I used did not work, so I just need to use a different strategy. So I think, please don't define yourself by your failures. Rather, see it as an occurrence and now think of strategies. Even if it's reaching out to people, if it's like studying more, if it's like getting more resources, it's not like who you are. You can always overcome that.
Wow, that is interesting, because people might think that all of these A students, they never had to failure. Yeah. Okay. So now the other question I'm going to ask is, which should be my last question, or second to last, is that looking back into your life, the last 10, 20, whatever years, are there things you thought, or you have thought about, that if you had the chance, you would have done differently? What would that be?
Oh, that's such a good question. It's such a good, deep question. I think that one of the things I've been thinking about recently is how, like, while I was in medical school, I was just like 100% surgery or nothing. One of the things I've been reflecting on more recently is like, I wish that I'd not been as hard on myself. Like I wish I'd like explored other disciplines more than being very like pigeonholed on what I thought I wanted to do. I mean, in the long run, everything just works out for good. But I feel like that's one thing I would have done differently. Like I would have done more and different electives in different places rather than just like surgical electives, right? Because I thought that, okay, it's this or nothing. I would have also had more time to spend with my friends and family, like visiting my people in Winnipeg more during medical school, because I don't think they saw me maybe once or twice during my 3-year program. Now they've even seen me more this year. So I think that that's one thing that I would have done differently. Like, so like in case anybody is listening and they're on a journey where they're trying to pursue their goals and their dreams and desires, in the middle of that, like your family and your friends are also important, and your own self-care is also important. So as much as like you have that drive and you want to do all of those things, make sure that you're making time for those other things that are also equally important, so that not one part is suffering. Yeah, so that's what I would say.
As a very, I don't know, I should be a top fan on your Instagram, maybe, but I know, and I see the way you celebrate, support your friends. What is it about you going all out, celebrating your friends' successes, celebrating their achievement and accomplishment? What does that do for you, and how did you come to that point where you are not just focused on yourself and just be, as long as I'm succeeding, that's one. What gives you that? How did you get to that space where every step of the way of your friends or people around you, you just want them to be as successful as they can be? What drives you?
Honestly, I'm so surprised that you like know that from like just like relating with me, because yes, truly, when I see my friend or anybody that I know do well, it's almost like I'm doing well. Like that's the kind of joy I get. I'm like, I just feel like not one person has to be the only one shining. Everybody around you should be shining. What's the point of you doing well and then your neighbor is like suffering or they're not even half of where they want to be? Like, then you're not doing well. That's how I see it. Like, I get so much joy and pleasure from just seeing my friends do well. Like, it it gives me more pleasure than me myself doing well. I can't even explain it. I think it's just like maybe this empathy or like I just want people to do well, especially and you don't even need to be friends with me. Like I can come across you and you share a dream or a goal or desire for yours that you have, and all of a sudden I've carried on my head and I'm like, okay, how can we make this happen? To the point that sometimes people are just sharing because like they just want to relieve a burden, but immediately my mind is just like, let's find a solution. Let's bring it to pass. So I guess it's just the way I am or the gift or the kind of heart that God has given me where like
Wow.
not just one person needs to shine. Everybody ought to shine
Mm,
because then it's so much more sweeter and like joyful that way. Because then you're in a circle of like everybody's doing well. Like I can't be in a circle where my people are not doing well and I'm doing well and I'm happy. Like
mm.
no, it's going to affect the joy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. So I've really enjoyed our conversation. I know that you are very busy as a medical doctor. You are busy, right? So any final word to people that will be listening to this broadcast?
Yeah.
What will be your final or parting words that you have for them?
Yeah, I think my final words are like, don't shortchange yourself. Don't feel like I can't do this. There's nothing that you cannot do. Literally. All you need to do, put your heart to it, find the resources that you need, and then ensure that this is the line in which God is directing you to. It will come to pass. It might take longer than you like imagined it to be, but if you don't give up, it has no choice. The door will just open.
Mm,
So try not to surround yourself with people who tell you that it's not possible. You better just settle. You better just do this cleaning job and don't try and go back into school. This is your lot. Just be a taxi
mm,
driver. No. While you are in that taxi driver season, start planning towards, even if it's, let me just take this exam in the next 2 years. Don't just settle for less. God has so much more than you can ever think beyond your imagination.
mm.
And He will bring it to pass. But you self, you need to cooperate. So don't give up. Don't feel like it's hard. You can
Wow.
do hard things.
Wow, it's such a pleasure having this session with you, Dr. Bill Irabor. Thank
Thank you
you
so
so
much.
much for your time, and I wish you all the best in your residency and your subsequent programs. I wish you all the best. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. Bye.